Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Game Club. I'm Graham.
And I'm George.
There's been a lot of takes on the internet. We've seen a bunch of them. And, some of them are good, and some of them are not so good. There's been people saying that the game's dying, people lamenting that it's a side game, people happy that it's not a main game, and just, takes all over the place. And we wanted to get our 2 cents in, because I think we have a pretty unique perspective on it in terms of what the players should expect from Honkai Star Rail and what Hoyoverse expects from Honkai Star Rail. I think the most important thing to realize is, Hoyo has clearly made this game with some pretty clear intent. They didn't just make this game by accident. They didn't accidentally not make a main game. They didn't release a game that just didn't have enough content ready to go. They have made this game exactly as it was meant to be. And judging by the way that Genshin kind of happened and the experience that we had with Genshin, it seems like pretty obvious that this was going to play out in the exact similar way, because there's a lot of parallels between this and how Genshin played out at the start.
It's funny that you say that, because a lot of the things that people are saying about Star Rail right now were also said about Genshin way back when Genshin 1.0 released. Oh, the game's dying because the next patch there was a drop-off of players. Oh no, the game is not what people were expecting it to be, and all this stuff. And super interesting, to use that term, to see a lot of the same stuff that they said about Genshin being said now about Star Rail. And it's just kind of funny and sad at the same time to me that this is happening.
We have to understand that there's smart, informed reasons behind why they've done this. So let's unpack that for a second. Why has Hoyoverse not put main story content in 1.1? Well, there's a lot of reasons it could be. Let's see. Most of the player base probably hasn't even 100%ed 1.0 content. Maybe they're done the full story, but there's probably a lot of side content that they're still kind of working through. Most of the player base aren't at level 60 plus like a lot of the 1%ers hardcore people are. There's people anywhere from the level 20 range all the way up to 60, right? And then 60 plus if you're a whale. More people are coming in as reviews come in. There's more and more people coming into the game. They're starting for the first time. And so what they want to do is they want to have as many people get all of the 1.0 content done as possible, but they also want to satiate people who've gotten that 1.0 content done with a little bit of content in 1.1. But then the intent is, okay, we want everybody, as much people as possible, to be ready for the next story beats and the next major super fun update. All you and your friends can experience, that the people online can experience, we can all experience at the same time. We're all going to be ready. We'll talk about it online. It'll trend on Twitter. It's going to be a big event, right? It's a big thing. They want to make sure we're all ready to go.
Yeah, if I were to measure only by online talk, I would probably be in the minority of people that was actually kind of glad that 1.1 didn't have more story stuff. I don't know how long it took you to 100% 1.0, but it took me a decent chunk of time. I was curious, and if I remember correctly, it's 60 hours, how long the beat says. It took the majority of people to, 100% or the main plus extras for 1.0. So, when 1.1 came out, I was like, uh-oh, what's gonna happen? I just spent all this time. 60 hours is a long time. You could have beaten Thor Ragnarok. Or Thor Ragnarok. You could have beaten God of War Ragnarok. You could have beaten, well, maybe not Elden Ring. Not 100% at Elden Ring. There's a whole lot of different games that you could have beaten in 60 hours. That's not nothing. That's a decent amount of time. And so when 1.1 came out and the game was just, they had the Silver Wolf event, which was pretty cool. They had the museum event, which was, decent in my opinion. Towards the end it got a little long, but it was still a fair enough event. I was happy. I was glad that my time commitment for the game did not radically increase again, because like you said, Star Rail is a side game, and I personally love that. Yes, we're content creators, so my relationship to the game might have been a little bit different, but if I was just playing, just for me, I would have zero interest if Star Rail was my main game. There's just so many other games that I want to play, and Hoyoverse directly competing with the likes of Tears of the Kingdom that just came out, or Pikmin 4 is going to come out. There's a lot of quote-unquote main games that I want to play and I'm looking forward to, and if Honkai Star Rail had to compete with that, dude, for me personally, it's easy. I would look the other way and take all these other games. But the fact that Star Rail requires 10 minutes in the morning and like 5 minutes at night just to like burn off through your resin. And you can do it on auto. I said resin, I meant Trailblaze power. You can burn it on auto and just, you know, take 10 minutes in the morning to do your dailies. Is so nice. I could do that for years. And that's kind of the intent and the strategy that Hoyoverse is after. They don't want to compete with the quote unquote big boys. They don't want to compete with these main games. They want to be your companion game, your side game that you're able to take with you for however long they continue to develop it.
If you just look at games like, you know, Destiny, Final Fantasy, World of Warcraft, like these games are games that you're going to play long term. They require a lot of hours. But even in the context of like Final Fantasy, Yoshi P has said he doesn't want you to sit there and play his game for hours and hours on end. He wants you to play the game, get through the content, and then go ahead and play some other games for the meantime, right? Like, his game isn't a side game. Final Fantasy 14 is not a fucking side game. This game is huge. It's an MMO. But he also understands that no games can be played forever. At least we're not at the AI technological point where we can make more content that players are able to consume, right? You could spend like a year making content that players will, like a locust swarm, consume in like a week, right? It's just not even feasible. So it's just that Hoyo understands this. They don't want their game to occupy that main slot. They're taking what I think is potentially a smarter approach, and they're saying, listen, it doesn't matter if you're playing Elden Ring, Pikmin, Final Fantasy 14, or whatever else freaking game, we're going to sit in this comfortable side slot here. We're going to sit in here, and when you are done with Elden Ring, and when you're done with Zelda, and you're moving on to the next thing, you're always going to have the Hoyoverse games. You're always going to have these companion games. They're always going to be here for you, right? Because while you were playing Zelda and you were doing this or that, you opened up your phone or you flicked it on your computer and you just did your dailies, right? And it only took you 5 minutes. And because it only took you 5 minutes, you were more inclined to just do that. I'm excited. I want to play more Elden Ring. But, you know, it's not like it's going to take me a couple hours to get this Honkai Star Rail stuff done. It's just going to take me 5 minutes. So I'm inclined to keep up with the game. Whereas maybe Final Fantasy, I finished all the content I want to do, and I'm planning to come back 3 to 6 months. Maybe I just forget, and I just get caught up playing other stuff, and I remember occasionally, oh, frick, oh, Final Fantasy, that's right, I want to go back and do that. Hoyoverse isn't going to have that problem. They're always going to be there, right? And then there's going to be updates occasionally that'll get you, like, really into the game with, like, story and new characters and stuff like that. But they realize that it's better to have you, instead of like Destiny style elongating massive grinds, they realized it's better to have just people touching the game, right? Just touch the game for 5 minutes, just touch it. And I think it's smart. I think that because of this, you're going to see a lot of longevity out of the game. Yeah, is the game not going to be as big as Genshin? For sure. But open world games are freaking huge, right? There's no way. Open world games just really play into what people want from a full video game, like a fantasy land that you can like go and explore. It really feels like you're there. And so it was never going to be as big as Genshin, for sure. And so they knew that, and they knew that even to Genshin, if you were playing Genshin as more of a main game, you could still have Star Rail as your side game, right? Like, it's just so smartly made that even within their own ecosystem, they're preparing for how games are going to slot and play with each other.
Yeah, like bringing up Genshin is a perfect example, because not only do they have Genshin and Star Rail now, they're going to have Zenless Zone Zero. Like, there's already a pattern of Hoyoverse developing games in different genres that attract different types of players. Like you mentioned Destiny. Destiny is a type of game. It's a games as a service. They want to attract the player base, and they want to keep the player base hooked, doing only that game or mostly that game, and spending your game spend money, you know, just on in Destiny as much as possible. Whereas Hoyoverse looked at that and said, you know what? We also want people to play our games, and we also want to hook them as much as possible. But in my opinion, they took a much more dynamic approach, and instead of just having that one single giant main game, they're making a bunch of different side games. Like, yeah, Genshin is a little bit more involved than Honkai Star Rail. We don't know exactly how Zenless is going to be with its daily system and all that stuff, but like, you can already see how things are shaping out when there's lull in Genshin, you go to Star Rail. When there's a lull in Star Rail, you go back to Zenless. When you're getting bored of Zenless and it's, you know, high precision combat and you want to just relax, you come back to Star Rail and you relax with its auto and really simple gameplay. Who knows what more type of games that they can do. There's so many genres that Hoyoverse could expand into, and we know they have desires to do that, not only based on some of the stuff that they said, but what they're doing right now, which is, you know, they're expanding into 3 different brand new games. And so it's clear that this is the strategy that Hoyoverse is going after. And from a company perspective, you're casting a wider net, attracting even more players. From a player perspective, if you love Hoyoverse and their games and you want to collect a bunch of anime characters, anime husbandos, and anime waifus, boom, you have a bunch of different games that you can do, and you could play all their games and keep up with all of them, because they're all going to be kind of essentially side games with different levels of commitment, obviously. But, you know,
Sure.
Star Rail for sure being a side game. And then not only do Hoyoverse fans get to enjoy all their games and keep up with them easily. If you're just a casual player that's like, oh, well, you know, the open world's cool, but I have this other game that's an open world game and I want to devote my time to that. But you know, this turn-based strategy game's looking pretty sick. You can pick and choose like little morsels of treats, and you don't have to devote your whole time to the whole thing. And now you have this nice side companion game that you can carry with you through the years, very low time commitment. And you know, the 1.0 story was pretty cool. I don't blame people for wanting more of it, but you have this side game that every once in a while, boom, a new big meaty patch drops. You get a bunch of story, you get to continue to learn more about the characters, new characters are introduced, and once you beat that, now you go back to your regular life, playing all these other games that you wanted to play, and you continue forward.
Companies have used the term companion games, lifelong games. Sometimes that works for bigger games like Destiny, but I much rather enjoy a game respecting my time. I much rather enjoy getting in, doing what I need to do, playing any meaningful content, and then getting out, and then going and doing some other stuff. If the game respects me enough to do that, I'll respect the game enough to come back, right? Like I'll know that, okay, if I know that the time I spend with this game is well spent, and then I can go and do something else. And honestly, if you look at it from an economy perspective, if we're really getting into the like actual economy of it, if I play Honkai Star Rail, I want to buy, I'm a low spender. I'm not going to whale, but I'm not going to go purely free to play. I see something like the Welkin Pass equivalent in Star Rail, and I go, you know what? This is a really good deal. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to buy this for $5. It gives me some gems. It keeps me engaged in the game. No problem. I would like to spend more at that ratio of return, but if they give me more options to do that, then it's going to destroy their economy. It's going to destroy the economy of gems and of character releases and patch updates and stuff like that. It's going to be a total mess. But if instead they give me more games like Genshin and Zenless where I can buy a different pass for each of those games, well, now they've gotten like $15 out of me, and they haven't had to destroy. I'm getting everything that I want at a good ratio, but the other game economies aren't destroyed because they're varied up between games now. And the more games they get out, the more options that I'm gonna have to spend. I can't not buy it. So it's like, it's good for them, it's good for me. I just think it's such a smart way of going about it. It's like, it's a huge win for basically freaking everybody.
For sure. And like, there's always gonna be free to play people. There's always going to be whales, you know, there's always going to be those ends, but there's, you know, people like you and me. I'm also a low spender. I don't, aside from like the express supply pass and sometimes the battle pass, if I really want like a light cone, maybe I'll get that. But beyond that, like, I don't put a single penny into the game. With more games like Star Rail, they'd be getting more money out from people like you and me. And the other thing that I'm thinking about too is like, yeah, it really sucks if you don't get the character that you want in just one gacha. But if you're playing like 2 or 3 or 4 gachas, I didn't get, you know, the new character in Genshin, but I got them in Star Rail, and I got them in Zenless, and I got them in, you know, whatever this other platformer, shooter, or whatever game they decide to make, right? Like, oh, I got it in that. And so it takes the sting off a little bit, quite a lot actually.
True.
If you're able to spread that character desire or character want across multiple games. People might not like the fact that Star Rail is a side game. I personally love it. For me personally, that's the exact type of game that I want. And I myself, because the games like this, see myself sticking around with it for much, much longer than I would otherwise.
This side game stuff has worked out so well. I was shocked to hear that Asmongold is playing Honkai Star Rail. In fact, he's like Trailblaze level 60 or something. He's like right up there with the top players who are like really keeping up with the game. I was shocked, absolutely shocked, because I know he's like playing Diablo like a lot, and he's doing all this other stuff. Like, to a testament of how effective this is, they even got Asmongold to keep up with an anime game while he's playing Diablo 4. Like, if that's not proof enough that this model absolutely freaking works. Like, it doesn't matter that this game is maybe a little bit more casual, or like Genshin's a little bit more casual. I'm a hardcore gamer. You're a hardcore gamer. Asmongold's absolutely a hardcore gamer. Yet here we are playing this alleged casual, more casual kind of game because it just fits in so well with the whole kind of placing that they want their games to have. And I just think it's really, really smart. This is something that I think gacha games have filled a lot in the past, but Hoyoverse is really knocking out of the park with how they're able to just slot in just like that. What are your perceptions? Did you always think that this is kind of the way it was going to go and you're happy or sad with the way it is? Let us know in the comments. We genuinely want to know. But with that said, we will see you all in the next one.
Take care.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Game Club. I'm Graham.
And I am a very sick George. I don't know if we should use that, but my voice, you can probably hear it in my voice. It's a little bit rough still, but I'm on the mend.